Should I begin?
Yes.
Okay. Before we begin, I want to invite our Spanish-speaking community members to click the button which will appear at the bottom of your Zoom screen in just a minute and choose the Spanish option to hear the forum in that language. We'll wait a minute for the interpreters to get online.
Si por favor pueden buscar el botón para escuchar la interpretación en español de esta sesión en la parte inferior de su pantalla para elegir el lenguaje de español. Gracias.
Okay, it looks like the button has appeared. Welcome to the State House District 11 Candidate Forum, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Boulder County. My name is Jennifer Bales. I am a proud member of the League, and I am pleased to serve as moderator for tonight's forum. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. For over 100 years, we have encouraged informed and active participation in government and influenced public policy through education and advocacy. To remain a nonpartisan, the League never supports or opposes political candidates or parties. We are pleased tonight to have as our Spanish language interpreters, Jennifer Nielsen and Mayra Oliva. Now to the forum. Colorado House of Representatives is the lower house of the Colorado General Assembly. The House is composed of 65 members from an equal number of constituent districts, with each district having a population of about 75,500 people. Representatives are elected to 2-year terms and are limited to 4 consecutive terms in office, but can run again after a 4-year respite. The legislative session begins no later than the second Wednesday in January and lasts up to 120 calendar days. The format for tonight's forum will be as follows. Each candidate will have 1 minute for an opening statement. We will then ask the candidates as many questions as time permits. Questions have been reviewed by our League of Women Voters volunteer screeners and will be addressed to all candidates. We will share questions that are not asked later with the candidates. For most questions, each candidate will have up to 1 minute. However, I may expand the time to answer depending on the question. I will announce if the time has been increased from 1 minute. Our timekeeper, Josephine Porter, will help you stay on track. We will finish with 1 minute closing statements. Tonight's forum participants include, in ballot order, Karen McCormick, the Democrat, and Tara Menza, the Republican. Now to the opening statements and questions. Please watch for the timekeeper's signal at the 15-second mark and end when your time is up. If you are mid-sentence when the time is up, please promptly finish that sentence so we can move on to the next candidate or question. For opening statements, we will begin with candidate McCormick. You have 1 minute.
Great. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for this opportunity. It's really great to be here tonight to share our views and values. I am the current state representative for House District 11, which is Longmont. I am a career small animal veterinarian and small business owner, running my business here in Boulder County for 17 years. Grew up in a Navy family. I have 3 kids who all grew up here in the same house. We've been here 28 years, and they all went through the St. Vrain Valley School District. I'm proud to say I'm the chair of the House Agriculture, Livestock, and Water Committee, and in my first term helped to pass many bills to address labor protections, especially for farm workers, lower healthcare costs, helping seniors in assisted living facilities, supporting public education funding, reproductive privacy, mental health access. I'm a big champion of the LGBTQ community because one of my kids is non-binary, and focused on climate mitigation and protecting our water. And so I'm running for a second term because there's so much more to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Menza.
Hi, thank you for having me as a League member. Myself, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm Tara Menza, and I'm running for Colorado House District 11, and I'm running to give you back your voice in your state government. I'm a mom of 6, a substitute teacher, a small business owner, and a community leader. I live in Longmont with my husband, who was born and raised in Colorado, and our 5 children who attend public school. Prior to meeting my husband, I was a single mom to my oldest daughter, who is now grown and married. I know the challenges our communities face today with skyrocketing crime and inflation because they affect me too. I'm always out and about in the community with my kids, and people come up to me and tell me They've called and emailed their elected and unelected officials about these problems and get no response. They tell me they show up to public meetings and at the Capitol to tell their elected leaders what matters to them, but they feel their voices fall on deaf ears. I want to bring our community back together again with shared values and common ground. We are government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And it's time the people had a voice, and I plan to bring those voices to the table and represent everyone.
Thank you. For our first question, we will begin with candidate Menza. The question is this: what are your thoughts about the oil and gas industry, as well as the renewable energy industry in Colorado?
So right now, the reality is we need our oil and gas to meet our current energy demands. We have the cleanest ONG in the world right here in our backyard. We say we care about the environment, yet we buy this resource from major world polluters and truck it in, which does nothing to reduce our carbon footprint. Let's put our money where our mouth is. I want to support developing a parallel energy transition path that doesn't kill jobs or increase energy prices. We need to focus on realistic energy transition and efficiency improvement technology, such as supercapacitors, energy storage for non-continuous energy generation, hydrogen fuel cells, small-scale nuclear reactors, a decentralized grid and grid infrastructure upgrades. I will support and incentivize that research and development to get us to a point where we can transition without killing jobs or creating so much regulation that it drives up the price of energy. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate McCormick?
Yes, so we all are still dependent on oil and gas. I still drive a gas-powered car. I still have a gas-heated house. So realistically, we have to make sure that we're looking towards the future on how best to transition towards a green energy economy, and realize that at a federal level, we've had the biggest investment in transitioning to green energy in decades. And I'm really excited about the possibility of opening up new avenues for jobs and new economies of scale in that realm, and how we can also look towards storage capacity, so that as we use wind and solar and heat pump technologies, that we're learning how to store those technologies so that we will always be prepared and not run out of the critical energy needs that we all have, and to make sure that we're doing a just transition for all of those that are involved in any of these energy sectors.
Thank you. The second question, first for candidate McCormick. What do you feel are the economic priorities for this district? How would you enable small businesses to thrive in our district's rural communities and smaller towns?
Well, being a small business owner myself and having had 24 employees and having to make it paycheck to paycheck for so long, I do understand the ins and outs of what a challenge and also a reward it can be to have your own small business. And so making sure that we open up opportunities for small business owners to run their businesses. And critically, right now, we have a workforce shortage. And so investing on programs that help build our workforce, and parallel to that, we have to make sure that we have housing available for small businesses to be able to employ the people that they want to hire. It's so critical that we have people in our community that are able to fulfill these jobs, that also can live in our community, so that we're not adding to the transportation problem that we already have. So looking at the whole economy in a holistic way is the way I like to approach things, and making sure that we build up that workforce development.
Thank you. Candidate Menza?
Thank you. Small businesses are the heart of our communities, and we need to support them and bring them to the table. We need to listen to their needs and not simply impose more taxes, fees, and regulation. We need to start voting for candidates who oppose big government and restrictive regulations at the expense of business owners, who simply pass those costs down to employees and customers. If business owners are free to make a profit, they have the affordability to raise wages, which attracts more employees. Individuals working to provide for their families as well as businesses striving to meet the needs of their community together and free from intrusive oversight, can lead to fuller bellies, bigger paychecks, and greater economic prosperity. Also, we're 8th in the nation for the highest cost of childcare for our workers. I want to solve our childcare problem by finding innovative ways for employees to afford childcare. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The next question, beginning with candidate Menza. Should Colorado make changes to its laws concerning abortion?
Thank you. Right now, we have the most unrestricted, most egregious abortion law in the country. And you can have an abortion up to 40 weeks with no questions asked. I would like to see that law scaled back because it has been proven that babies can survive outside the womb after 22, 23 weeks. And if we want to protect a mother from being harmed because she's pregnant, if there's a baby in there at 23 weeks and older, that baby can survive, and so can the mother. Abortions are between a woman and her healthcare provider. And I would like to see healthcare providers being the only providers able to perform abortions. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate McCormick?
Well, this is a really big area of difference between us, so I'm glad that this question came up. I see pregnancy as a medical condition, and there are so many things that can happen along during a pregnancy that need to go right, but that also can go wrong. And because it is a medical condition, as with any medical condition with any woman or man or child or senior, these decisions have to be left to the individual with their input from their medical professionals, their faith providers, their families. This is a very personal, private decision that needs to be made with the person that's involved and the support of their family. And this is one of the reasons why I ran for office, is to make sure that we as women and other people that can get pregnant have the ability to make decisions for their own body with their medical providers' input.
Thank you. The next question, beginning with candidate McCormick. How would you address homelessness in Colorado?
Well, I'm proud to say that this was one of our priorities when we had the American Rescue dollars come down from the federal government, as well as COVID relief dollars. As the House and Senate at the General Assembly, we prioritized housing and homelessness and put over $400 million into this space to make sure that we were giving grants to local governments, not only municipalities, but counties, in order for them to use that money with nonprofits in their towns and cities to address homelessness, to find innovative ways to keep people in their houses, because going back to prevent homelessness is one of the biggest things that we need to focus on. So finding ways to repurpose buildings so that we're utilizing buildings that are owned by the state, to repurpose those into housing for people that do not have housing, and then make sure that we have the wraparound services to get them to a successful place in our society.
Thank you. Candidate Menza?
This isn't a one-size-fits-all situation. We need to meet the homeless where they are and find innovative ways to get them off the streets. The root causes of homelessness are mainly mental health and addiction. We need to get them into facilities that can treat them, allowing them the opportunity to get back to work and put a roof over their head. However, the rising cost of living is also now contributing to even more homelessness. Our inflation is among the highest in the country, and the state is doling out federal money to homeless with no conditions tied to it. Why would people want to work if there's no incentive to? We need to treat the mental health and addiction and partner with nonprofits to model a system here in Longmont, we have a really fabulous nonprofit that helps homeless veterans get off the streets with an 84% success rate. We need to stop raising property taxes that get passed down to renters and make it easier for more affordable and attainable housing to be built that doesn't impose costly regulations that drive up prices. Thanks.
The next question I would like to give 2 minutes to, because it's a little more long and complicated. The question is 2 parts. What are your top priorities for the upcoming legislative session? And what do you think is the most pressing issue our district is facing today? And we begin with candidate Menza.
Thank you. So there's a lot that we can do right now. The most pressing issue, I feel like, is the rising crime that we have going on, and our fentanyl overdose deaths. Our crime is rising because we have mental health problems. We have an addiction problem because of the fentanyl. We've got the inflation that is driving people to turn to crime. My opponent sponsored the misdemeanor reform bill, which allows certain felonies to be reclassified into misdemeanors. And there are soft on crime policies like these that keep criminals on the streets. Criminals are not being held accountable for their crimes. We've got PR bonds that just allow criminals to have a signature saying, I will come back. And the fentanyl overdose is expected to kill over 2,000 people this year. Fentanyl has got to come off of our streets. We cannot continue to allow it to flow through our communities. It is affecting our children, it is affecting our neighbors, and we need to find ways to treat the problem for the people that are addicted to drugs and alcohol without allowing the drugs to continue to flow through our streets and kill members of our community. And we've got to look at ways to help the mental health problem. We've got to look at ways to address the inflation, get people back into work and into a home so that they don't turn to crime and they don't turn to drugs.
Okay, thank you. Candidate McCormick.
You bet. So I'm still very much focused on our housing crisis. We have not kept up with the building of houses and homes and apartments and affordable living options over the last several decades as our community has grown and population has increased. So I want to continue to work on ways that we can be innovative in solving those issues. I also want to work really to focus more on mental health. We've done a lot in the last 2 years, but there's so much more to do. And I agree that the mental health issues that our community is facing many times end up with folks turning to substance use disorder. And so having those two paired together to make sure that we're addressing people with everything that they need so that they have the facilities and the support to get through those substance use disorders and to get the mental health they need to get back on track. I also am really focused on our environment too. We have one of the worst air qualities here in Boulder County, and I want to work with ways that we can be innovative in the agricultural space to make sure that we're using our agricultural lands as one of our greatest resources to address the amount of carbon that's in our air. We have so many adults and kids that are suffering from asthma, and this should be one of the most beautiful, clean air places to live. And so there's many things that I want to focus on that go a little bit deeper into each of those. And I do want to point out that these last few years where we've had many criminal justice and reform bills that have occurred, they have come to the legislature through a collaboration of district attorneys and police departments across our state that actually worked hard to craft those bills to come up with solutions so that we can better find the areas of drug import into our state.
Thank you. Okay, our next question, which candidate McCormick begins. What steps, if any, would you support in the legislature to curb gun violence?
Well, I was super proud to support the bills that we did pass in my first session. That forming the Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the Department of Public Health was a big one, because this is the way for we as a state to address messaging and education to statewide on ways to prevent gun violence. We also passed a safe storage requirement so that people that made the decision to be gun owners know that storing those guns can help prevent accidents and stolen guns. Lost and stolen requirements as well, I supported, and closing the boyfriend loophole so that we make sure that people do have to go through a background check. Going forward, I do believe there's more that we can be done as a state. I think that looking at some kind of waiting period, a cooling off period, would save many people from suicide. A friend of mine themselves, having waited just one day, prevented suicide of her son, and to raise the age on certain firearm purchases.
Thank you. Candidate Menza?
So we're facing a rising crime crisis, and we need to get to the root cause, which is mental health and addiction, paired with soft on crime policies enacted by the legislature. Colorado currently has over 300 gun laws on the books that need strict enforcement. The last time I checked, criminals in Colorado do not follow those laws. We need to ask ourselves, how are these criminals obtaining these firearms? Colorado House Bill 21-1299, which Representative McCormick mentioned, opens the Office of Gun Violence and Prevention that is costing the taxpayers $3 million a year. They need to be actively involved in these discussions. Colorado law also says convicted felons cannot purchase a firearm. My opponent co-sponsored Senate Bill 21-271 that reclassifies certain felonies into misdemeanors. I will ensure hardened criminals are held accountable for their crimes and hinder their ability to obtain firearms by not releasing them back into the streets.
Thank you. Okay, our next question will begin with candidate Menza. What lessons learned from recent wildfires would you apply to policies for wildfire prevention, evacuations, and services?
Thank you. So I feel that we need to ensure that our proper forest and grassland management is happening. The pine beetle killed at least 10% of the trees in Colorado, and those dead trees are simply kindling and need to be removed. We need more Colorado firefighting assets for early detection and control, and also for evacuation. And we need more fire barriers around our communities where grassland fires could start. And we need consistent mitigation. We need to help our citizens ensure that they need to have proper insurance in case of events like these. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate McCormick?
Yes, we have to realize that fire season is year round. We at the General Assembly did invest quite a bit of money into forest mitigation, wildfire mitigation procedures. All of these things cost a lot of money. And so directing general funds to these things is something that is a priority at the general legislature. The other thing that we have to make sure we're doing is restoring landscapes after a fire to protect our watersheds. So watershed restoration, forest management, wildfire mitigation. We are also starting a new pilot camera operation that these are movable cameras that can detect early detection of fire if there's smoke to be seen somewhere, which I'm excited about. We also invested in a brand new firefighting helicopter that we had to borrow from other states in the past. So all of these things that we're learning about year-round readiness, we are putting into practice.
Thank you. The next question is a bit related to what you've discussed already, but we might be able to go into it in a little bit more detail. Air quality is a major health concern for our entire Front Range region. What is your position on oil and gas industry regulation and oversight, beginning with candidate McCormick?
Great. Well, I was happy that we made the change to direct the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission, the commissioners in that space, to focus on public safety and health, which you would think with their title would be their primary objective, but that's just been the last couple of years that that's been in place. And so now looking at ways to better measure air quality, so having more monitors in different locations is happening now, and also to break down exactly what air toxins are floating through, especially more industrialized area, and how that might be affecting people that live closer to those industrialized areas, so that we can better zero in on where these air toxins that could be creating more ozone in our area are coming from. Once we know the source, we will have a better idea of how we can address limiting the production.
Thank you. Candidate Menza?
I feel like our air quality issues are due to the wildfires that the whole western part of the United States has been having. I agree with Representative McCormick. We definitely need more ways to measure the air quality, and we need ways to help people just understand what the air quality is and make sure that we are addressing the wildfire issue on the western half of the United States. Otherwise, I don't feel like the ONG is the reason we have bad air quality. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this question will first go to candidate Menza. Colorado Public Radio reports from the CU Colorado Springs Economic Forum the issue that Colorado faces a lack of qualified workers for many of the state's most in-demand jobs. This has come up before too. How would you remedy this situation?
I feel like we should always be encouraging people to better educate themselves. If they're uneducated for a job, there are opportunities for employers to offer incentives to get more education, and that person can stay in the job while they're still getting more education. We always need tradesmen. That is one of the biggest pieces of education right now, is to get people into the trades and not just going to college, and just support those that are just now graduating high school to go into the area that they're seriously looking at going into, and supporting them in doing that as far as trades goes, or if it's college. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate McCormick?
Yeah, you bet. So yeah, our unemployment rate is so low right now. It's really contributing to this issue of workforce development. So we can continue to invest in development in a variety of ways, and apprenticeship programs are an excellent way to let people know that they can have a career in a trade or an area, a healthcare area that maybe they hadn't thought of, and making sure that we get to our kids earlier, for instance, in middle school, so that they start to think about all the possibilities of places where they can plug in as a successful career going forward. I'm a big supporter of many of the labor unions in our state, and they have incredible apprenticeship programs that I've toured, where people can get paid a living wage while they're learning a trade, and then end up with great benefits and great pay for the rest of their lives. So super supportive of programs like that.
Okay, thank you. The next question, candidate McCormick will begin. What, if anything, should Colorado do about state Medicaid underfunding?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Because it's so tied in with the federal government as well. So us being able to increase funding in that space is tough. I mean, I'm glad that we were one of the states that took in or decided to do the Medicaid expansion so that we could make sure more people were accessing the healthcare that they need when they kind of fall into that space where they don't have employer insurance and they're not making enough to afford their own insurance, or they have our seniors and our disability community that have such issues that they qualify for Medicaid. So just making sure that Medicaid works for the people in our state that are eligible for it, I think is really important, and that we find ways to undo some of the red tape. There was a bill I passed last year for equine assisted therapy that did just that I was really proud of.
Thank you. Candidate Menza?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. What, if anything, should Colorado do about state Medicaid underfunding?
So I feel like the federal government, like Representative McCormick said, is tied to a lot of this. And we need to look at the accountability for where that money is going, and are people who don't need it using it, and do the people who absolutely do need it, are they using it? I believe we can get better accountability of the money that is being spent and where it's going, and we need to make sure that we look at that. And then also, whenever you get the government involved, there's always too much red tape. So let's look at reducing some of that red tape and getting people the medical care that they need.
Okay, the next question, Candidate Menza will begin. How do you feel about the legislature's use of fees for state revenue? Should they be increased for additional government revenue?
I think we have Tabor that limits the use of fees, that limits the use of the government taxing. And we've worked around that with calling it a fee now. And a fee is a tax. That's exactly what it is. And I believe that we should look at adding a comment to the Tabor law that says fees are taxes. And people need to understand that when the government calls them a fee, when the state calls them a fee, that it's actually tax, and they're not giving their approval to do that. So I don't approve of fees. I think we need to tell the people what they really are, and their tax.
Thank you. Candidate McCormick?
Yeah, you bet. So the difference between a fee and a tax is that fees can only be imposed for very specific reasons. And once that reason is outlined in law, they cannot be used for anything else. Whereas taxes come into the general fund as a big bucket of money, and then the laws and our previous obligations decide where that money goes. Because we do have Tabor, which we're the only state in the entire union that has anything like that, by the way. Because we have that, we are not able to sometimes fulfill our obligations for very basic infrastructure, firefighters, teachers, roads, bridges, emergency response. And so the legislature and the government has had to use fees as a way to specifically address certain things, like the gas tax fee was to help roads and bridges where we didn't have enough taxes to take care of all the repairs that need to be done.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question will begin with Candidate McCormick. What are your thoughts on mental health issues among kids in Colorado, and how should we address that?
Well, my thoughts are that the the more we are transparent and talking about it with kids, and the earlier in life that we talk about how to examine and name their own mental health, so that we can all talk about it in a very open way, just like we have for many years about our physical health, where we stress the importance of eating right and exercising and getting your sleep. I think the mental health discussion for our kids, we've failed them in a way for many, many decades by not talking about it early in life, so that they understand that they can be taught also tools to address any mental health challenges, anxiety, depression, worries, and also feeling that they're alone and don't have anyone to talk to. So I think I'm impressed that we're all talking about it more than we used to, but I think there's more to be done, even starting with an earlier age in our schools.
Thank you. Candidate Menza?
Thank you. So the COVID lockdowns perpetuated the mental health crisis in our children. They were isolated from their friends and they didn't know what was going on. They couldn't understand what was going on. And we also need to destigmatize mental health and start talking about that more. I believe that we need to add mental health to the holistic medical care. We ask parents about our children's body health, but we don't ask them about their mental health. So I think we can add that into the holistic medical care. And then we need to increase insurance funding for it. Right now, there's not enough beds for children in facilities, and there's not enough things that we can do right now for kids who need immediate help. And we need to look at addressing that.
Thank you. Okay, the next question will begin with candidate Menza. What are your thoughts about secure elections and increasing voter accessibility in Colorado? Is there anything the legislature should be doing?
So I think election integrity is a bipartisan topic. We all want to feel confident in our election process. Our Secretary of State mailed out over 30,000 voter registration mailers to non-citizens. I keep hearing the gold standard is Colorado. And when you make mistakes like that, that's not the gold standard. There's always room for improvement. Also, we have this ongoing lawsuit against Colorado's Secretary of State with respect to dirty voter rolls. There's a study that showed 40 of Colorado's 64 counties had voter registration rates exceeding 100% of the eligible citizen voting age population. The share of Colorado counties with registration rates exceeding 100% was the highest in the nation. We have a lot of room for improvement. I'll make it a priority to have clear and consistent cleanup of voter rolls and more transparency in our voting process, and I will always ensure accessibility of the right for our American citizens to vote.
Thank you. Candidate McCormick?
Yeah, you bet. I agree that free and fair and accessible elections are one of the cornerstones of our entire democracy, and having people be able to vote in a way that works for them is critical. I'm proud that our state, under a Republican leadership, actually rolled out this mail-in ballot system for every Coloradan across our state. And since then, our voter turnout has just been admirable through across the nation. And we've had our own past two secretaries of states talk to many other states about how it's done here. I'm super proud of that. I think having a mail-in ballot system not only helps with the ease of voting, but it gives people time to critically think about what they're voting for or against. Having more and more ballot access boxes, which has happened over the last couple of years, is key. And to make sure that every eligible voter has a way to have a plan to vote.
Thank you. This will be our last question before we do closing statements. And this question will begin with candidate McCormick. With such a large region to represent, if elected, how would you make and maintain connection with community members in your district?
Well, with redistricting, the region has actually shrunk. So I see it as really coming down to being now my hometown. Before it was the predominant size, most of Longmont, Lyons, Allens Park, and Niwot, which was also doable, because it was all in one county, and many other representatives have multiple counties. Now it's my town, except for there's an eastern slice of Longmont, because now districts are about 90,000 people. So for me, this is my hometown. I've been here for 28 years, connecting as I have in the past. It was a little harder with COVID, but having hopefully in-person town halls more, and coffee with Karen, which I was doing quite a bit, and just making sure that I'm getting the word out to what's happening on a regular basis through our community, and also what's happening at the General Assembly.
Thank you. Candidate Menza.
So this is a great question, and I love it because as a mom of 5, I am always out in the community. I'm at school events, I am at extracurricular activities. I have been very visible in this community, and I enjoy talking with everyone and anyone everywhere I go. I enjoy making friends, and when I knock on doors and I talk to people, it's been a lot of fun to go into communities that in neighborhoods that I haven't been in yet, and knock on a door and find a friend and that I didn't know lived there. So my goal is to consistently be in the community. I always have an open door, always have an open phone, hold town halls, hold coffees, meet people where they are, and invite them to come to the table, because I want to represent them. They are the ones who matter the most.
Thank you. Now we'll do closing statements. You'll have 1 minute each, and we'll begin with candidate Menza.
Thank you. So right now, our communities are divided because we don't have a voice in our government anymore. There are basic common ground issues that we can come together on, such as safety in our communities, being able to afford a roof over our head and food in our bellies, the education of our children, and energy. But these issues take a representative who doesn't care what side of the fence you're on, but will bring you to the table to listen to what matters to you. This isn't about me, a grassroots candidate, getting my agenda across the finish line. This is about ensuring the government is doing right by you, keeping you safe, helping you prosper, bringing you to the table on matters that affect you and your families. This November, our safety, our pocketbooks, and our children's education is on the ballot. A vote for me will be a vote to reduce crime, reduce costs for you, and ensure you always have a voice in your government. I will always listen and find common ground so we can afford to live safely in our communities and enjoy everything our great state has to offer. I would love to be able to earn your vote this November.
Thank you. Candidate McCormick.
Thank you. And thank you again for giving us both this opportunity to come before the people of Longmont. If reelected, you can count on me to legislate in a respectful way, to be thoughtful, to always consider data and reason in any decision that I make. And I try to take compassion with me everywhere I go. My critical listening and critical thinking skills that I've had for my entire career have been very helpful down at the legislature. I want to reach meaningful solutions that help people. I do support the values of a strong democracy and good governance. I support our public education system. I am there to protect reproductive rights and civil liberties. I do want to increase access to mental health care. I want to work to mitigate climate change and protect our precious resources and be responsible to all the people of Longmont. And I would love your vote. It would be my honor to continue in this position. So thank you very much.
Thank you. In closing, on behalf of the League, I would like to thank our candidates not only for their participation in tonight's forum, but also for their participation in the democratic process. Running for office and serving as an elected official is hard work, and we really appreciate your efforts. Thank you to our League Candidate Forum volunteers, and a huge thank you goes to our 2022 election sponsors: Big F Restaurant Group, Christina's Luxuries, Elevations Credit Union, High Plains Bank, Lion Gaddis Attorneys at Law, Simmons Family Fund, Charlie Matson, and GG and Company Pet Products. And finally, thanks to the Boulder County voters and for participating as viewers. It's up to all of us to make sure we respect and work to protect our democratic processes. Too many people have struggled to win these rights for us not to use them. It starts with being an informed and active voter. Before signing off, I would like to alert voters that tonight's forum, as well as many others, will be available at the League's website, LWVBC.org, the YouTube channel for the League of Women Voters of Boulder County, and vote411.org. Vote 411 is the League's premier voting information guide that provides nonpartisan information on state and local candidates, ballot issues and questions, and much more. Resources available on Vote 411 are available in both English and Spanish. The League of Women Voters of Boulder County works throughout the year to help empower voters and defend democracy. If you want to lend your time and skills to encourage civic engagement for all people in a nonpartisan manner, please join us. All of the information you need is at LWVBC.org. Have a great evening.